So here's an exercise on our car and cooter basics. So there's two parts to this really 1 through 4 is asking you some similar questions. Uh, I'm not really asking you to code in any of this, so I really don't want you to code. But I do want you to draw things out. So I would get a scrap sheet of paper out or whatever. And then part 5 is using this last part down here that you see. So just a heads up on that for this exercise. Get to work on it, and I'll go over some solutions with you here in a moment. So as we're given our list of 1 to 5 here, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the equation that we're given with the car and 2 cooters. We're actually going to do the inside out first. And remember, almost kind of doing it backwards. But first, we're going to get the cooter of the entire list, which really, remember, it remembers that that's the rest of the list, skipping the first item. So it'll be first all of that. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the second CDR. So that's actually going to go ahead and rip out that one. And then get us a 3, 4, 5. Now, what is the car or the first item in that list is going to be 3 for our result in that particular problem. Now, the other problem is that we have 2 CDRs and we don't have a car at all. So this really went back to this problem again, is that we had 2 of them. The first CDR would give me the entire list from 2 to 5. The second CDR would give me 3. Now remember, it wants to return the CDDR, so it's this first D here, is the second D here. So what you're going to be returning is the actual list. It's not going to be just one element. If it's one element, that's using car, but CDR is going to be returning really what's left of a list, which could be one item eventually, but it has to be all the way at the end. So your answer for the part 2 is going to be 3, 4, and 5. And now let's see how it looks and confirm this with our setup in Racket. So proving this, I'm going to do it in my particular setup for scheme, so which is Racket on this one. So I'm going to go into the interpreter mode. So I'm just going to hit Racket. It's going to come up with my display, and I literally copied and pasted this from the code, so I'll show you here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to hit Control-C. Then I'm going to go back to my window. Then I'm going to hit right-click. You hear the dong. And then I'm going to hit Enter. And uh-oh. Well, not everything comes out right. The problem is the smart quote. So now you know why I'm worried about the smart quotes, because I told you about number 1. A lot of you copy and paste it, and then it blows up, just like I did. So once I replace the smart quote, hit Enter, it gives me the answer that, well, hopefully we're expecting. So then the next one here was our CDDR. You know what? I'm going to see if I can get... Oh, I can go up. Okay, didn't even know that either. Anyway, so what I'm going to have this time is that, you know what, I'm just going to copy from here. But notice you can do it that way. But anyway, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to right-click. And again, I know I got to change this part. Hit Enter. And there's our list 3, 4, 5. Just to confirm everything worked out for us. So now if we wanted to get the 5th element in this list, which happens to be 5, kind of give away what's going on here. So first of all, there's really actually 2 answers to this. So one, and it's a technicality, but it's really, really important. Remember that car will return an element from a list, but CDR returns a list. So notice I don't really specify it in the instructions, so I could get 2 answers to this. But anyway, as you notice, I always will get first, here's my D. That will give me the rest of that list. The next list or next D will give me the next third of that list. D will give me 4 and 5, and then another D at the very end. So I'm going to need 4 Ds in this just to get what I want, which is really the last element. Now, if I want to return a single element from this, I need the C and the A part of this, and then my 4 D, 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 and R. If I want to return a list, so I'm going to have that return a value of just 5. If I wanted to return the list that has the 5 in there, it's going to be slightly different. There's no A in there. And that would return literally a list that had 5 in it. So notice there is a big difference between using the A and using the, well, not using the A. Let's put it that way when it comes to your response on that. So we have to be very careful with our overall response. Now, we also could do this slightly different too. We could spell this all out. So it'd be a massive car of, phew, man, it's going to be a car of, I'm going to do CDR for the last one. Cooter of CDR of CDR of, oh my goodness. So it's going to be rather long here. And then CDR of our list, which I almost screwed up here, of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would work out if we wanted to do it that way. And then I got all my ending parentheses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. 1, 2, 3. These two would be equivalent, if you can believe that. So just a heads up that you could actually have more answers to this. And that's what makes things unique in the scheme when it comes to coding. So just a heads up the difference between the two for that particular problem. Here it is again, me just proving it. So I'm going to do the long way first, meaning that. So with the car out front, the car, cooter, all that good stuff here. So I'm going to hit enter, it gives me 5. But what I could do, and let's see if this works out here. C, D, 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 R. Same number of D's. And I gotta watch. I should only have 2. Yeah. Okay. Now notice again, one gives us the car, gives us the element. The second one, which had no A in it at all, doesn't give me the atom. It gives me or returns the list to me, which only has one atom or one element in it, but that is a list, can have one element in it. Matter of fact, a list can have none in it too, but it returns appropriately, well, the list. And again, notice I can use the long or the shorthand of this in order to get the response that I need. In the next problem, it has a C, D, 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 5 Ds. Just making sure here, it's 5 Ds here. And by the way, notice it is not asking for an A in front of that. So that means it's going to be a list that it's returning. Now, very similar to the problem that we just did, if I lay out my 3 Ds, again, skipping the first one because that's a car, and then the rest of this, it's going to return 6, 7, 8, and 9 for our remainder list. And let's check on the proof. And again, so this might be interesting. I'm going to hit D, or I'm going to hit enter here, and it blows up. Remember that in our flavor of scheme, there's actually an extent of how many Ds we can put in a row. Now, we're going to be able to substitute here in this in a moment, but in my particular flavor of scheme, it doesn't have up to 5. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of redo this here. C, D, D, and then, you know what? I'm going to do CD... Oops, nope, I'm going to CDR of CDD 4 Rs. I think this will work out. One extra parenthesis. Sweet! Got lucky. But notice, there was nothing wrong with the code that I had. There was. But in theory, there's nothing wrong with what we had. It's just our flavors, most of them that I've seen so far only go up to 4. So we have to be very careful about that. But notice I can do a substitution with that, making it a little bit more long-handed instead of the shorthand that we prefer, frankly. Now we have some of the displaying of a nested list. So hopefully the code's going to show up here in a moment. But I want to go through this with you because I tried to avoid these as much as possible. When you're cheating online and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of these. You're also going to see some authors do this, which might make more sense now that you see the code. So what's going to happen in the first one, it just prints out this list of A, B, C, D. So I'm skipping that one. But the next one has the car of the list. So you know car is going to be the first item in the list, and this is their topmost or basemost portion of the list. But this part doesn't exactly link to a straight up, letter. It goes to a list. So that first part, this is the car of that list using the A. So that would print out A and B. But here's the interesting part. The next one's the interesting part because it's with 2 A's. So there's a lot of authors that do this, and I respect it. So if they'll do this, they'll draw this like this, an A, and then they'll have an arrow come down to it. I get that, because in reality, for the next one has C, two A's, and an R. A moves us down here, and another A moves us down here for our answer to get to A. So either way that you want to draw it, the way that I had it or the way that some other authors do it, it's totally up to you when it comes to that. But in reality, that's how it fits out, and that's how we get to our A in that particular part of the list. So this would really be gone. So matter of fact, I'm going to make it disappear by magic here. And that's how we would get to the A portion of that. And the B would look the same, C and D. So that's that portion of this. For Cadr, again, we're actually going to go backwards because this is really the inner set of parentheses. So D, starting from here, is this entire set that we have here. We're totally getting rid of the first element, just getting the rest of the list. But inside of that, I'm going to get my A. So here's my D. I got to be careful with my letters here. And then my A portion of that. So my A portion gets me down into the inner list. But in reality here, I'm not specifying. I would need a third letter to really specify C or D. But because I got into this frame, I'm returning an actual list as a value when it comes to this one. So just a heads up on how this is working out. And again, I would need really one more letter to get to either C or D specifically out of this. So now we're working with Cadar. Remember, we're actually going to be kind of doing this backwards. I know it's what is that, the radar, stuff like that, looks like that, but I'll explain why for the next problem here. But remember, the innermost set, we can rewrite this as a car, of a cooter, of another car, and then the innermost set of parentheses is really going to be towards the end here. So we're going to take care of that first. So I'm going to take care of the A part, which starting from here, this is our A. So we have this chunk left. Next, I take care of the D part. The D part, remember, returns the rest of the list that we're not pointing at. So we're eliminating this portion right here and getting the rest of the list, because it's a D, returning the rest of the list. But I want the single part of that list that we were given from the D and display that because that's our last one. So the real reality of the result from this is going to be straight up B by itself as an element, not as a list. So for Caadr, again, starting from the back, getting the rest of the list. Starting from here, getting the rest of the list, so that's D. Then I have an A. A is going to give me the first element of this list. But then again, I have another A, so I'm going to get specifically the first character in that mini inner list here, and that's going to be C. So we had someone that was the one that was really close to this, but now we individually got into the C and got that value. All right, the last one, it's a biggie. Very similar to the previous one, actually. So again, going backwards, taking care of the D portion. That is the rest of the list. Cooter takes care of the rest of the list. So that's my D. Next, I take care of the A. That means I want an element that's attached to this. Then I'm going to get the rest of the list. So I'm here. So the rest of the list means that I'm off now to here. So notice the D's are always going flat or going to the next node in its current position list. Then I get the A from that, which is here. And that's how we get the D for that particular portion of the list.